The best of the Morning X. 99X.
New Rock 99X, please welcome back to the show Stephen J. Cannell. Hello, sir. How are you?
Here, I'm great.
It's good to see you again. You've been here. This is at least your third or fourth visit.
This is your. Well, let's see. We had. What are the three books we've had you here for?
King Khan.
King Khan, maybe Riding the Snake.
I
Devil's
think so.
Workshop.
Yes.
Yeah.
This, 10 Collectors.
Man,
Your books are doing very well.
Well, they are. I'm really excited about my novel writing career. Coming out of television, this was always my dream to be a novelist, and now I'm doing it.
Do you not want to do any more TV?
Yeah, you know what? I've got a pilot I'm doing at NBC, and I got a miniseries at CBS and a Showtime movie, and I'm producing a couple of feature films. But
So that's all going to start rolling again.
yeah, but I'm basically trying. And novel writing's my gig now. That's what I'm doing.
Now, you said this one has already entered its number what?
Well,
on the
it
bestsellers list?
just came out, and it's on Amazon right now. It's at number 50 as of last night at 6:00. So,
wow.
If you take all the how to not eat and get fat books off that 50,
Right.
it's like number
You're
15.
three.
And if you take and the 16 Harry Potter books.
Right, and the 16 Harry Potter.
Now, are any of the TV projects you're working on based on any of your novels?
No, I've got two of my books set up as feature films, but basically my novels are standalone books.
Mm-hmm.
This is the first of a series. This character is
Right.
about the Internal Affairs Division at the LAPD, and the character Shane Scully. I've written already a second novel with this character.
Oh wow! Now this is kind of Serpico-ish. This book, right?
Well, yeah, it's a mystery. It's it's a character study. It starts at 2 a.m. when he's awakened by his ex-girlfriend, who's locked in the bathroom, and his ex-partner is trying to kill her, and she's saying, "Get over here and save me," and he drives the 4 blocks to her house and tries to separate this dispute, and he and his ex-partner end up exchanging gunfire, and he kills the guy at the end of chapter 1. And this...
Oh, way to ruin it for us.
Yeah,
Thanks,
well,
Steve.
I mean,
Oh,
hey,
man.
yeah, I know.
God,
It's like
forget
the
it.
whole
I was just
first
getting to
chapter.
that part.
And you can even get that on my website. You can download that
No.
first chapter. But the Internal Affairs Division starts to prosecute him, and he's trying to investigate this case, and it turns out that his ex-partner was involved in a whole lot of corruption. And so it's a really exciting book. And
It's called The 10 Collectors. Have you thought in your mind when you're writing these books, who would you cast for some of the roles when you put a feature film together based on your books?
You know what? I often don't do that. The reason is that when you're writing a book, you want the character to have his own life or her own life. And if you start by saying, well, this is going to be Clint Eastwood, then all of a sudden you start to put that meter into the
Sure.
character's dialogue. And I think, it's much more fun to create this character in your head and write him and write her, because there's a wonderful female character in this book named Alexa Hamilton, who is a prosecutor for internal affairs. And you begin to feel them as people. And then after you get it written, if you sell it to the movies, then you sit down and say, who would be good to play this?
In all of your shows, though, when you did casting, when you had people come in, did you know the minute you saw somebody, that's the character?
Sometimes I did.
Who was an instant cast?
Ken Wall in Wise Guy.
The minute you saw him.
When
it's
he
just-
came, actually, when I saw, he did a thing called, I don't remember, it was called Purple Hearts. It was a movie he did, and I looked at that movie and I thought, this guy is the guy. Mm-hmm. And I invited him in. He read my script and liked it, and we had a 15-minute meeting, and I said, if you do this, you got the part. And
Now, for those of you who are wondering, Stephen J. Cannell, I know I've heard that name before. I know I've seen it. What do I know it from? A couple of shows, The Rockford Files, A-Team, 21 Jump Street, Wise Guy, Hardcastle, and McCormick, The Commish, Silk Stalkings, all Stephen J.
Renegade.
For those of you who are wondering, Stephen J. Cannell, I know I've heard that name before. I know I've seen it. What do I know it from? A couple of shows, The Rockford Files, A-Team, 21 Jump Street, Wise Guy, Hardcastle, and McCormick, The Commish, Silk Stalkings, all Stephen J.
Renegade.
Renegade, that's right.
Is it Cannell or Cannell?
Cannell.
Cannell.
Yeah.
And wait, Renegade, was that the one you were in?
I
You acted in?
actually did 50 episodes as the evil Dutch Dixon.
How are you to work for as a boss? Did you like working for yourself, or were you kind of a,
I felt
Yeah.
I didn't get paid enough.
Yeah.
I was always complaining
problem.
to Steve Cannell
That's
about
a
my
good one.
salary.
Yeah. Now, explain to us what this potential strike is next year. Everybody's saying next year Hollywood's shutting down, and is this a big money from the internet? What is this?
Well, it's that. It's cable residuals. It's there's a whole clause in the Writers Guild negotiations about possessory credits. Writers have always been upset that directors have taken that a film by credit. When you haven't written it yourself, it's just sort of writers say, well, how can it be your film if you didn't write it? And of course that actually pits the writers against the directors, which is going to be very messy. And
so this is not an actors thing we're talking
well,
about. It's
a writer's
thing?
strike, and then the actors actually, their contract comes up 2 months after the writers. So if the writers go out, it's very conceivable that the actors will go out after it. It's possible to continue to shoot if you stockpile scripts, without writers, but you can't very well shoot without actors.
The networks may be okay, though, with all these reality-based shows, if that continues for a little while at least.
That's right. We're going to have, every conceivable...
It'll be all reality,
all
TV
reality
clock.
stuff.
I know you've been writing, involved in writing the book. Do you have much time to watch television? Do you like any of the current TV shows?
Yeah, I watch television. I don't watch late into the evening, but I certainly do watch. I like. I've always thought Frasier was a cool show and very funny, and I like NYPD Blue and Law and Order and JAG, and there's a lot of shows. I
gotta
like,
believe
Friends.
Go ahead.
Yeah, a lot of shows that I like that I think there's a lot of great television on.
I gotta believe you're a big fan of the HBO shows, Oz and Sopranos. I mean, those are right in your wheelhouse.
And Sopranos was created and is executive produced by David Chase, who was one of the staff of writers that we worked together with on Rockford Files.
Yeah, that Oz has to be a nightmare with all those speaking parts and all the different things going on. So many people to coordinate.
Yeah, it must be.
And it's so well done.
And what's amazing, guys like Tom, there are a couple of guys in Hollywood. I guess at some point you were one of these guys. Guys like Tom Fontana, who's the creator of Oz, and David E. Kelly. And who's the guy who writes The West Wing? What's his name?
You just blew it out of my head. John Wells.
No,
that's ER. West Wing.
What the heck?
Forgot his name.
Not Tommy Schlamme. He's the
Tommy Schlamme,
director. He's a director. Anyway, these guys write every single word of every episode.
It's amazing.
Were any of your shows like that?
Well, I used to write somewhere in the neighborhood of 10 or 12 episodes a year. David E. Kelly writes, I don't know how many Ally McBeals and how many practices. I mean,
that guy must go through a lot of Diet Coke.
But I'll tell you something else. And he's got Michelle Pfeiffer at home.
Right? How do you have time to write?
Right.
It's like,
talking about some distractions going on there.
But he also doesn't do any film editing. He doesn't do any casting. So he basically, hangs out completely in the writing department.
On the contrary, were you involved in
all yeah. I mean, I edited and I cast, and so I was doing a lot of other functions beyond writing. But I used to get up every morning and write for 5 or 6 hours.
Were you a stickler as a boss if you'd be hanging out on one of the episodes, they're doing lines, and someone says lines, kind of means the same thing, but it's not what you wrote? Would you have them do it exactly how you wrote it, or were you liberal in that aspect?
It depended on what line was getting changed.
Not really changed, but...
Well, paraphrasing lines is kind of sloppy acting.
You wrote it for a reason, obviously.
And I always used to feel that a line that I wrote, rewrote, and struggled over, and polished
should be
a little better than something that an actor just throws off the top of his head. However, that having been said, there were ad-libs that I used to get that were hysterical, and I would always leave those in the picture.
Like I've got to believe that Fred Dreyer was a big ad-libber.
Actually, he wasn't.
Like I said, he didn't seem like the kind of guy who ad-libbed
like an ad-libber at all to you, did he?
He seemed like the kind of guy who stuck to the script.
And you know who absolutely never would change a single line? And if another actor, a guest star, would be on the set and changing lines, he would come up and say, I'd appreciate it if you wouldn't rewrite the dialogue, was Jim Garner.
I was getting ready to ask you about him.
Yeah, he never changed anything.
The guy, Aaron Sorkin, is the guy, by the way, that we're talking about from West Wing.
Okay, right.
He's the creator. And
there's a fan of yours who has a question. Hey, Josh.
Yes.
Josh, you're on with Steven.
Hi, how are you?
Hey, Josh, how you doing?
Pretty good. I have a question. I was a big fan of Renegade, and then when it was on network, I got confused because all the times would change, and I couldn't figure out whatever happened to the show. And I'm wondering what happened at the end of the series.
Well, Renegade is currently occasionally still running on USA. They run it once a week. But it's almost through with its USA run, and then I'll take it back and I'll sell it into syndication.
Was there a conclusion?
The last episode, my character Dutch Dixon was discovered to be the total, evil dude that we all knew he was.
Right.
And I was then on the run from the murderers that I'd committed, and the idea that we were going to do in the following season, had we been renewed, was that both Lorenzo and I were going to be fugitives.
Thanks,
Oh, okay.
Josh. I hope you have someone at home, because with all the shows, you can't go through the TV dial once without finding a couple of his shows, because the syndication Brinks truck probably stops by once a day.
Yeah, it does, and
You have so many shows going.
It drops off, the $15.
Now, Stephen, you mentioned earlier that you were working on a movie based on one of your books.
Yeah, two of the books, The King Khan, which I
excellent.
came here to pitch once, and Final Victim.
When can we see those?
Hopefully soon. We're in development on both of them.
I enjoyed King Khan.
Yeah,
I really enjoyed it.
Book.
I wanted to ask you again about Fred Dreyer, because when you cast him in the lead, at the time he was not an accomplished actor, right? He was
just off the
an
football
ex-NFL player.
Well, it was a pretty interesting thing, because he was a guy that would refuse to play himself. A lot of athletes will get offered opportunities to be themselves on some sitcom or something. They come on and they're the jock, and Fred would refuse to do that. He took acting classes, and he actually approached acting very much the way he approached sports, which was that he was going to get as good as he could possibly get to be able to compete. When I first met him, I hired him on an open reading. He came in, and I hired him to play a heavy on a pilot I did called The Rousters, which ended up selling and was not a very good series. But Fred was terrific in this pilot.
Was this right after football?
It was probably, he'd been off the field maybe 4 or 5 years.
And he just decided to take up acting? He had never done it?
I think he'd been taking classes. And when he came in and did this reading, he was the best actor that I could find to play the part.
Well, the reason I was asking was, at any point did the network, and I think, was that ABC?
No, that Hunter was on NBC.
Hunter was NBC. Did the network at any point say to you, we really are not comfortable placing the weight of an entire series on a guy who doesn't have that much experience. We'd really prefer you cast somebody who's a little more well-rounded.
Absolutely not. They loved him. And he had also been auditioning for Cheers to play the part that Ted Danson got.
He would have been good in that role.
And he was, because they were looking for an ex-jock, and he was the finalist with Ted Danson.
Oh, wow.
So he almost got Cheers. And he was that good. He's really...
I like him. I've always liked Hunter. I love that show.
Yeah.
That's a very good show.
Who are some of your favorite mystery writers? Did you have any favorite writers?
Oh, yeah, a lot. John D. MacDonald I loved. Obviously, Raymond Chandler. Most writers, have read... mystery writers have read most of Raymond Chandler. The writers working today that I really love are Michael Connelly, Dennis Lehane. I like Janet Ivanovich. I like Linda Fairstein. Nelson DeMille. I have a whole lot of faves, that I read all the time.
Stephen King fan at all?
I'm a Stephen King fan. I think Stephen King is one of the best wordsmiths. It's really interesting to me how, because of the genre that he writes in, he gets smacked around by critics. But if you sit down and read his books, and I'm not a fan of that genre, but I'm a fan of his writing, and he is such a wonderful wordsmith. It always surprises me.
And every now and then, though, he will come up with something that's not in that genre that is just brilliant. Something that's
Shawshank
beyond,
Redemption.
like Shawshank Redemption, or what
or The Stand was just like one of the really great books. I thought, when I read that, it was about the war between good and evil, and it was just an incredible.
Yeah, Leslie's
The Green Mile.
The Green Mile,
Green Mile's
right?
another one.
Yeah, when it comes to those, are just right off the track, but they're so good.
What was the book that he did? They turned it into a movie about the guy who. Something happened to him, and he had the ability, when he touched a person, he immediately could see how they were going to die.
Yeah,
what was the name of that book?
Was that the one
that
where
movie?
People were walking in the street? Oh, no.
No, that was a recent one that you're talking about. With
you know what? You guys were talking about the wrong Stephen.
Yes, we are.
Yes, we are.
Yes, we are.
Oh, yeah, sorry about that.
How
but
long
anyways,
did- how long
Yes,
did-
Mr. King.
Sorry about that.
Yeah.
How long
No,
does
no.
it take you to write a novel?
Yeah, The Tin Collectors, for instance.
It took me about 6 months.
And for those people, the Tin Collectors, what does that mean?
Cops refer to their badges as tins.
Oh.
And this is internal affairs, and they're the ones who take these badges away. They terminate officers who are, who are guilty of crime. So I called this book The Tin Collector.
Now, the LAPD, they are always in the news, and they're back in the news again with that. They have some trial, I guess, going on. Big police.
The
Rampart
Division thing. And it's an amazing, it's an amazing trial because, it's now been thrown out. The convictions have been thrown out by a judge because she believed that the jury did not decide the case on the right merits, on the right points. So now this may all end up back in court again, being retried by the.
I'll tell you, that Rampart Division, ever since Reed and Malloy left the Rampart
gone
Division,
downhill.
it has gone
really
downhill.
has.
I'll tell you, ladies, I guarantee you, your dad or your husband or your boyfriend will like his books. I mean, I'm guessing that most of you, that you do skew male in your books.
You know what? More and more, I'm getting females reading because one of the things that I do in these novels is I always have a female character who's equally as important to the story. And in this case, it's Alexa Hamilton. She is the prosecutor at Eternal Affairs that is prosecuting his case. And as he begins to discover this corruption, she's the only person in the LAPD who believes that he's telling the truth.
Well,
so she's kind of conflicted. She's prosecuting him at the same time she's helping him.
before you leave, kind of want a home version of this. Will you take this piece of paper and kind of throw it up? Pretend like you're pulling it out of the typewriter and throw it in the air.
I'll move over, Steve.
A whole lot harder than it looks. I used to think this should have been an Olympic event.
That's right. This is the
but I have a lot of help when I do this.
Yeah, you have no TV magic here.
And I don't have any animation to help me bend it into a C. So everybody, close your eyes so this doesn't get a paper cut here.
Good flight.
Stephen you're a little out of practice.
Not very good.
Thank you, sir.
Right. Thank you very much.
Thanks for having me back.
Good book, The Tin Collectors.
The best of the Morning X with Barnes, Leslie, and Jimmy. 99X.